My younger sister Jade stole my fiancé just 3 days before the wedding, so I gave her a wedding gift she'll never forget. I should have seen it coming long ago. Jade has always been the golden child of the family. More beautiful, more graceful, more alluring. Since we were children, everything has come easier to her than it ever did for me. She borrowed my clothes and never returned them, befriended the people I was close to, and gradually took them over. When I was 16, she convinced my crush, Ethan Miller, to take her to prom by telling him I was flirting with someone else. I spent the entire night crying in my room while she wore the dress I bought with my part-time job earnings and went to the dance as if nothing happened. When I was 22, I spent a year studying abroad in Italy. Upon my return, I discovered Jade had moved in with my college boyfriend, Chris, claiming she was helping him cope with depression after his dad passed away. Every single time, my parents defended her with the same weary tone. Jade didn't mean any harm. My mom would gently pat my head and whisper, "That girl has this strange charisma, everyone's drawn to her." And my dad would add, "She's not malicious, just young and impulsive." But I know Jade always had everything meticulously planned. I learned that bitter lesson when I was 15, after I accidentally found her diary. Inside were detailed schemes on how to take over my life. Every friend, every opportunity, everything I held dear. About Ethan, she'd written, "Lena's so boring. Let's see, one conversation and he'll fall for me." About Chris, "He deserves someone who appreciates him more." But I believed Evan was different. We dated for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. We met when I was working as a waitress to pay my nursing school tuition, and he was a line cook at a small Italian restaurant, his eyes filled with quiet ambition. He loved that I could make him laugh after tough shifts, loved my unwavering support, loved that I invested my entire savings, $23,000 from night shifts, into his dream restaurant when the banks refused him. Evan had seen Jade's manipulative side. He grimaced when she pretended to brush against my ex-boyfriend at a family dinner, then laughed it off when I reacted. He'd heard her snide remark when I tried on my wedding dress. "Lena looks good in something conservative, but I bet Evan wants something sexier, right?" And she laughed it off as if it were harmless. I thought Evan was immune. I believed that. I believed he was the only one Jade couldn't control. We met when I was working nights at Luca's, a small Italian place in the Mission, and he was the new line cook, skilled but always looking a little tired. One evening close to Thanksgiving, he burnt the sauce, and I helped scrape the charred pot at 2 a.m., laughing at the burnt smell clinging to our hair. Moments like that turned us into partners at work, and eventually in life. Evan isn't perfect. He dropped out of college and endured being treated like a failure by his family for studying culinary arts instead of engineering. But his passion was real, and I saw it. I stood by him when he dreamed up Eve's Table. I designed the first logo on Canva, researched permits, filled out the loan applications, even knowing his credit was terrible. When I transferred my entire savings of $23,000, Evan teared up. He told me I made him believe he deserved something better. I believed him. Evan had witnessed Jade's theatrics. At a Christmas party, she purposely spilled red wine on our engagement photo, then feigned concern. "The lighting's off in this one. I'll have your friend retake it." Evan just shook his head and whispered to me, "Jade's a soap opera in real life." I thought that was it. I thought anyone who saw through her would never fall into her trap. I even felt ashamed for doubting Evan, especially when he said, "I don't know why you tolerate her. You have every right to cut her off." But I couldn't. No matter how many times Jade betrayed us, family ties held me back. The wedding was scheduled for early May. We chose Monterey, the seaside city where Evan first told me he loved me. The rehearsal dinner took place at Alta Mare, where we had our first official date. The private room was draped in candlelight, filled with 50 close friends and family, sparkling wine, and tiramisu that Evan personally selected from our favorite chef. My dad delivered a speech like a fairy tale. "I've watched Evan grow from a struggling boy into the man worthy of my daughter. Now I don't just have a son-in-law, I have another son." Jade sat across from me, radiant in a sapphire bridesmaid dress I paid $450 for, coordinating with the rest of the bridal party. She smiled brightly, clinking glasses with me, her hand casually resting on Evan's shoulder whenever he spoke. I glanced over, uneasy, but Evan only shrugged and whispered, "She's just excited. Don't worry." I didn't worry. I trusted him. When it was her turn to speak, Jade stood up as if she were the bride, not me. She took the mic with both hands, eyes glistening, perfect, like an Emmy-winning actress. "Lena has always been my role model," she began, her voice trembling. "She taught me what loyalty is, what sacrifice is, what standing by the one you love means no matter what. And then Evan came along?" She paused, looked at me, then turned to Evan, her eyes soft with a kind of sorrow, like she was mourning something profound. "I've never seen my sister shine the way she does now. Evan, you didn't just choose a wife. You chose someone who believed in you when the world didn't. And Lena, you didn't just choose the man you love. You chose the one person who truly saw your worth when everyone else overlooked it." The room fell silent. I heard glasses clink. Someone let out a moved sigh. Evan turned and kissed my cheek gently, whispering, "Your sister really loves you." I smiled, a wave of relief washing over me, as if a shadow that had lingered inside me for years had finally lifted. For the first time in a long while, I thought maybe I could trust Jade, or at least believe she no longer needed to take anything from me. After the dinner, I went back to the hotel with my mom to check on my wedding dress. She adjusted the seams, reminded me to get enough sleep and to stay hydrated. She was the only one who said nothing about Jade's speech. "What did you think?" I asked, looking for some kind of reassurance. She only smiled. "You're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen. Don't let anyone dim that light." I didn't understand why she avoided answering then. Now I do. Maybe she sensed something. A mother's intuition can be sharper than any words. I set an alarm to wake every hour to hydrate, snack, relax, and sleep. I checked the timeline again. Makeup artist at 6:30, photographer at 7, car at 10. The rings had already been handed over to the best man, Evan's best friend, earlier that afternoon. I even texted Chelsea, the photographer Jade had recommended, to remind her not to forget the shot of my parents' hands beside our wedding rings. I was about to get married. A new life was about to begin. I had paved the way, planned every detail, mapped every step, and believed that all I had to do now was keep walking. 5 a.m. I woke up before my alarm, heart filled with a mix of nervousness and calm. Today, I was going to marry Evan, not some fairy tale wedding, no Vera Wang gown or Napa vineyard, but a real wedding between two people who had weathered enough storms to deserve this moment. I decided to do something small, bring him coffee the way we used to back at Luca's. I walked to the 24-hour cafe at the end of the street, the one that made the strong espresso Evan loved, and picked up 2 bagels with cream cheese, his favorite. On my way to his apartment, I smiled to myself. The thought, "This is the last time I'll walk in here as his fiancé," made me laugh softly. I slid the key into the lock, the same one I helped him replace when the old one jammed. The door opened like always. That familiar smell hit me. Damp wood, cheap soap, and the faint cologne I'd bought him for his birthday. But nothing else was familiar after that. There, in my bed, wrapped in my sheets, was Jade. Her body curled up like someone cradled in love. She was wearing a white lace nightgown. I recognized it instantly. It was my wedding lingerie, the set I'd bought from a boutique she recommended. Evan lay beside her, half-covered, his arm draped around her like it had been there for weeks. I froze. The steam from the coffee in my hands rose like smoke from a house burning down. Jade saw me first. No surprise, no panic, just a slow smile spreading across her lips, like the final move in a long-planned game. Like she'd been waiting for this moment, in this place, to watch me break. "I was going to tell you," she said calmly, sitting up without bothering to cover herself. But Evan realized he picked the wrong one. Evan shot up, scrambling for the blanket, his face pale, hands shaking. "Lena, please, this isn't what you think." I let out a small laugh, a sound tight and strangled in my throat. "Not what I think?" I echoed, eyes locked on the 2 empty wine glasses on the nightstand. right next to the engagement ring I'd proudly shown off, right next to the takeout box from the restaurant where we celebrated our 6-month anniversary. And just like that, the pieces started falling into place. And I, the one who always tried to see the best in people, finally saw the whole picture. Jade started talking. No shame, no hesitation, just like a speaker summarizing a job well done. "We planned it back in March," she said, her eyes glinting with satisfaction. "That night in Vegas, the food conference, that was the first time." I remembered that conference. I helped Evan prep his slides, printed his name tag, booked his hotel. I even reminded him to try and meet the chef he admired from that new Fremont Street restaurant. "Then Christmas," Jade went on, her tone steady, almost bored. "Remember when he called my name in his sleep? We were in separate rooms, but he couldn't stop thinking about me." Evan sat frozen. His hand clenched the blanket like if he held on tight enough, time might roll back to the moment before I walked through that door. "We talked about it," Jade added, her voice suddenly soft, like she was lulling herself to sleep. "We said we wished we'd met sooner, that he didn't have to go through you to get to me." I could barely hear my own heartbeat anymore. "And then there's the money," she continued, her tone shifting like she was entering the key section of a presentation. $23,000. Genius, really. Borrow your savings, open a new restaurant in Portland, start fresh. We've already picked a location. It has a skylight, an open kitchen, and no one to hold Evan's dreams back anymore. "Jade, that's enough," Evan hissed, but his voice was hollow. He looked like a child caught in the act, no shame, no apology, just frozen. "What about the apartment we saw last week?" Jade pressed on. "The one with the balcony overlooking the lake, the kitchen island, the walk-in closet? Or do you want to hear about the photographer, Chelsea, my friend that you thought was just a budget pick? She was planning to live stream the wedding from start to finish. Guess who gave her that idea?" That's when it all truly clicked. Why Jade was so eager to help pick the photographer. Why she insisted on managing the guest list. The real reason behind all her helpful suggestions. The entire wedding, from beginning to end, was a stage. And me, I wasn't the bride. I was just a prop in their little performance. I looked at the two people in front of me, the ones I had loved, trusted, forgiven, over and over again. The coffee in my hand had gone cold. My hands hadn't. They were shaking, not from heartbreak, but from anger smoldering like lava in my chest. I said nothing. I turned and walked away. I left Evan's apartment in silence. No tears, no screaming, no shattering coffee cups like in those cheap dramas. I just walked, steady, deliberate, like my legs knew that if I faltered even once, I'd never get up again. I drove to Sunset Point, the place where Evan had proposed to me one breezy afternoon, bathed in golden light. He had laid out a red checkered blanket on the sand, set out a pad thai box, and a cold soda, just like our first date, he'd said. When he knelt down, his hands trembling, I thought, this is the man who will never make me question love. I sat there for almost 6 hours. I didn't call anyone, didn't text, didn't post, just sat and watched the waves, letting the salt wind sting my skin until it scrubbed away every last illusion. I should have cried. I should have felt shattered, but what I felt instead was cold, a precise, brutal kind of cold, as if some part of me had been reset, and in that moment I was no longer the girl who believed in family or forgiveness. I got home at 11 a.m. My parents were in chaos, calling every vendor to cancel the wedding. My mom was crying like she'd been betrayed herself, while my dad argued with the venue about the non-refundable deposit. They both looked at me as if they were waiting for me to collapse into their arms. "Jake called me," my mom said, mascara smudged like spilled ink. "He said there was a misunderstanding. Maybe he just panicked under pressure. Maybe if you two talk..." "Maybe Evan's just afraid," my dad added, not meeting my eyes. "These things happen before weddings. People freak out, but they get through it." I looked at them, two people who taught me that family is where you always have a place. And now I saw them standing with my betrayer, because he brought my mom flowers on Mother's Day and helped my dad build a deck. The wedding is still happening, I said, setting my bag on the kitchen counter. Silence. But not the way you think. Lena, sweetheart, you're in shock, my dad said cautiously. Why don't you lie down for a bit and— I'm not in shock, I cut in, my voice so calm my mom paused mid-sob. I've never been clearer, and the wedding will happen. Same time, same place. But this time, people are going to really watch. I walked upstairs, leaving behind the kitchen thick with the smell of cold coffee, dried mascara, and the silence of two parents realizing their daughter was no longer fragile. I shut the door to my childhood room, the room where I used to pin up posters of pop stars, journal with glitter pens, and hang family photos from Christmases long gone. Now it was the command center for the first campaign of my life. Not for a wedding, but for the truth. The first person I called was Ray, my cousin who worked in cybersecurity. Ray once helped an actress escape a stalker, legally hacked a multinational system, he's licensed, and most importantly, he's the only one in the family Jade never managed to charm or manipulate. You helped me get through my divorce, Ray said after I finished explaining. You sat with me for 3 months, gathering evidence, helping me keep my apartment, the dog, and Grandma's wedding ring. This ? I'm in. I sent him Evan's address, phone number, social media info. I need everything, I said. Messages, images, even recordings if possible. I need undeniable, admissible proof, and it has to be legal. Ray paused. Does his building have security cams? Number. And he once showed me his lease. It's a basic one. Landlord's allowed to enter at any time for maintenance. Perfect, Ray said. I'll pose as a cable repair guy. There have been some reported outages in the Mission District. I can use the company's name to get in. Micro camera, in and out in under 15 minutes. I took a deep breath. Ray, I need this to be clean. If we have to go legal, there can't be any loopholes. I'm a pro, Lena, he replied firmly. This won't just be revenge, it'll be evidence. And justice. Next, I called Chelsea, the photographer Jade had personally recommended. She was known for her authentic, candid shots, capturing unfiltered moments. Looking back, maybe Chelsea was hired to document my downfall for some viral wedding drama content. Hi, this is Lena, the bride for tomorrow, I began. I need to tweak a few things in the photo plan. Oh, your sister mentioned you have this amazing, real storytelling style, Chelsea chirped. What kind of effects are you thinking? None. I just want everything recorded, even the awkward moments, especially the ones people think shouldn't be filmed. There was a brief pause. Then Chelsea chuckled, her voice softer. Lena, Jade said you were super creative. I totally support that. I'll bring extra memory cards, a backup cam. Oh, and I have gear for live streaming if needed. I might need that, I said, then paused. One more thing, keep this quiet. If anyone finds out early, it'll lose all its impact. You can count on me, Chelsea replied, her tone dropping slightly, as if she understood exactly what I meant. I'm a photographer, not a spy. And honestly, I've never liked your sister. I hung up and sat in silence for a few minutes. The room was so quiet I could hear Ray's computer ding as he emailed, "Deployment initiated." I knew everything would shift before sunrise, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for happiness to find me. I was going to strip away the masks and let the world see everything. My final call that night was the hardest. I stared at the screen for nearly half an hour, finger trembling over the call button. Then I pressed it. She picked up on the second ring. Lena? Her voice was deep and steady, unchanged after all these years. Hi? I'm sorry to call so late. I know it's probably your resting time. It's fine. You can call anytime. She paused, then lowered her voice. 12 hours till the wedding, right? I gripped the phone tighter. Not anymore. At least, not the way people think. I told Ruth, Evan's mother, everything. The caught in the act moment, the money scheme, the venom Jade spewed like she was accepting an award. I thought Ruth would be furious or panicked, but she was silent. When I finished, she let out a long sigh. I always knew there was something off about Jade, she said, her voice not angry, just sad. Ever since she tried to touch your uncle's thigh at the engagement party, right in front of the whole family. I told Evan then, if he didn't wake up, he'd lose the most valuable thing in his life. So that valuable thing was the $23,000? I asked, half laughing, half choking. No, Lena, she replied with certainty. It was you. I was stunned. In the 4 years I'd dated Evan, Ruth had never shown warmth. She was always polite, proper but cold. No hugs, no sweet words. I assumed she thought I wasn't good enough for her son. I'm not good at expressing things, she said, as if reading my thoughts. But I've always watched. I knew Evan would only grow into a good man if he had a strong woman beside him. And now I know he's lost her. I bit my lip. Tomorrow, I'm going public with all of it. I won't let them whitewash this. I need you there. Not for Evan, for me. Because I need one adult in the room, someone who'll stand up and say, this isn't normal. You'll have me, Ruth said without hesitation. I'll wear my best black dress, stand before the whole family and say every word clearly. And Lena, if you need someone to read your speech, I will. I was silent for a long moment. Some answers don't need to be said aloud. I only whispered, thank you. No, Lena, thank you. For doing what so many won't, exposing the truth beneath all the wedding glitter. I ended the call, and for the first time in 24 hours, I didn't feel alone. The morning sky over Monterey was clear, like it had been rinsed by a storm no one else had seen. The lawn where the wedding would take place was dressed in white ribbons, an arch covered in baby's breath, and blush peonies. Everything was exactly as planned, from the backdrop that read Lena and Evan to the empty chair labeled Bride. Except today I wasn't wearing a wedding dress. I wore a simple white suit, my hair tied back in a neat bun, lips painted a deep wine red, a warning in color. I arrived early, checked the mic, the sound system, and Chelsea's camera setup. She'd added 2 wide-angle cameras, 1 live stream rig, and a hidden mic under the podium. You sure about this? Chelsea asked, adjusting the stage lighting. More sure than I've ever been, I said, eyes locked on the widescreen preview, showing the stage, the guests, and Ruth's seat, front row left, the same spot she sat at her own wedding decades ago. Guests began to arrive. My relatives, old friends, Evan's co-workers. Everyone dressed to the nines, smiling, making small talk, scanning the crowd for the bride. No one knew what was coming, except a handful of us, Ruth, Ray, Chelsea, and me. Jade arrived at 10:45, 15 minutes early, wearing a stunning white wedding gown, the exact design I had chosen, mermaid cut, deep V-neck, low back, lace sleeves, custom made from a studio in Santa Barbara. The only thing she added was my mother's pearl necklace. Lena! She tilted her head, feigning surprise. You're not wearing your dress? I'm not the bride today, I said with a smile. Today's your big day. Evan followed behind, his face tense, trying hard to stay composed. He wore the silver tux I'd taken him to try on last year. His eyes avoided mine. The ceremony began, music played. I stepped onto the stage amid whispers and wide eyes and took the mic. I know you're all wondering what's going on, I began, my voice steady. Yes, this was supposed to be my wedding. But today, I'm not here to get married. I'm here to tell a story. I gave the signal. Chelsea pressed play. The LED screen behind me lit up. A video played, Evan and Jade in bed, giggling, whispering about running away together, plotting to use the wedding money for a restaurant. Evan's voice said, Lena's so dumb, she'll never know. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone let out a sharp breath. My mother collapsed into her seat. Jade stood frozen. Evan stepped forward, reaching for the mic, but Ruth was already on her feet. No, she said, voice firm. Everyone needs to hear this. I scanned the crowd, took a deep breath. They betrayed me, lied to me, made a fool of me in front of all of you. But today, I'm not a fool. I'm the one telling the story correctly. After my speech, I didn't linger. I handed the mic to Chelsea, stepped off the stage into stunned silence. No one stopped me. No one dared. As I passed the front row, my mother reached out to stop me, but it was my father who held her back. For the first time in my life, he said nothing, just looked at me, a sad look, not because of what I'd done, but because of what he had allowed to happen. I walked across the lawn to the car Ray had parked out front. He said only one thing, "Nice timing," and we drove off, leaving behind a scene that looked like the final shot of an exclusive film premiere. After that day, Evan disappeared from social media. Eve's table never opened. I heard Jade was removed from my aunt's will, the same aunt who paid both our college tuitions. Chelsea sent me the edited video. The real wedding. It quickly went viral on Reddit and TikTok, amassing millions of views. I didn't post it, but the internet has its own way of spreading the truth. Some people criticized me, said I was cruel, that I should have handled it privately instead of humiliating family. But hundreds messaged me saying they wished they had my courage, that I wasn't a jilted bride, I was a survivor of a coordinated betrayal. I moved to Oakland, took a job at a community hospital, and started over with long shifts and grateful patients. I rented a small apartment with sunlit windows and bought myself a white orchid, the flower I had once wanted for my wedding, before Jade said it looked too funereal. I still keep that white suit in my closet. Not to wear again, but to remind myself. On the day that should have broken me, I stood tall, held a microphone, and told the truth, to dozens in person, and millions more after. I'm no longer the polite daughter who stayed quiet to keep the peace. I'm no longer my sister's shadow. I am Lena, the woman who refused to be the betrayed bride and chose to become the main character of her own story. And if anyone asks me whether I regret it, I only regret one